We should do a show about that. We are recording, going to the split in 3, 2, 1. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Bid Nerds, your daily nerd out on the most interesting car of the day from all the automotive enthusiast auction sites, including Cars and Bids, Bring a Trailer, P-Car Market, Marked, whatever one we happen to be cruising through. My name is John Polnick. I'm your host. We record this show in the downtown container park in downtown Las Vegas, along with my partner, Michael Deeb, who we feed into the show from his studio in San Francisco. What's up, Michael Deeb?
John, I am in love with this car today. Get out of my way. Just let me get through this because I'm going to bid and buy this car. I love it. I want this car.
Right. We're going to have a hard time getting through this episode, huh? I would say that this car is you, but honestly, this car's kind of me.
Just because you own a car.
I've owned a couple of them almost identical. Yeah. Before we get to the car, let me just give a shout out to our sponsor, God and Porsche of Las Vegas. They are awesome. We're going to hear a little bit more from them later in the show, but if you are an enthusiast and you're like, you know what, I want to get an enthusiast I want an air-cooled Porsche or want some enthusiast car, you can just save yourself the hassle of all these auctions. Just go straight to them. Give them a call. But okay, so if you're new to the channel and you're going, what is this show? I saw a thumbnail about this Porsche. Who are these two yahoos? So if you're new to the Nerd Nation, what we do on this show is we talk about the most interesting car of the day from these auction sites. We find the most interesting car. We have a conversation about that car, what makes it the most interesting car, and then we get to the interesting part, which is the predictions. We make a prediction as to what's going to happen with that car's auction. Will it sell? Will it not sell? How much? And why? What's going on with the market regarding that particular car? And you can play along just like Price is Right in the comments below. You can put your bid in and see if you're better at it than we are, because at the end of the episode, on the second half of the show, we will go into the future and we will show you exactly what did happen, and we'll discuss those results. So play along with us. It's a lot of fun. We appreciate you guys who are already hanging out with us. Thank you so much for subscribing if you have already. And if you haven't, please do so now. Smash the like button. All right. So, Michael Deeb, what is today's car that you're going to be buying?
Oh, baby, check it out. All right, JP, on Bring a Trailer. On Bring a Trailer is this 1996 Porsche 911 Carrera two-wheel drive coupe with a 6-speed manual transmission. Our car is offered out of Birmingham, Michigan, and is showing just 59,000 original miles. Our car has some really cool equipment, JP, and I just got to run through it really quick and then tell you why I like this car so much. So this car was built with a limited slip differential. This car also came equipped with the automatic brake distribution. Our car has motor sound package, and that silver paint is an Arctic silver, but I think the more preferable polar silver metallic. It has a full black leather interior. The car has been upgraded with Bilstein PSS9 coilovers. The car originally came equipped with 17-inch Carrera 2 wheels, but somebody has upgraded to the 18-inch turbo twist wheels, and then put the little, I should say the stone guards ahead of the rear wheels. Something I remember you did on your 993 cab when you had it. But the equipment that's on this car, John, I think that whoever the original owner was for this car was certainly an enthusiast, somebody who intended to drive the car, because the limited slip and the motor sound package and the brake distribution, those are things that would enhance the driving experience on this car. Listen, in today's market, finding a C2 that is not all beat to snot or just in standard condition and with low miles is really hard to find. It seems to me that the only thing that's in the marketplace now are turbos that you can't afford, convertibles that you don't necessarily want, and then even if it's a coupe, it's either a Targa or a C4. So to find just a standard C2 that's not an S and not a turbo and not a convertible, I've think this car is a bit of a unicorn in the marketplace today. So when I saw this thing, I almost jumped out of my skin. I think this car is really, really neat. Um, these are cars that you used to be able to pick up cheap, but I wouldn't be surprised, John, if we're looking at a six-figure car in today's market. So I'm going to send it back to you, and you can tell us a lot more about these because you've owned them. I've never owned a 993, but given the fact that we just had a baby, this is probably the only 993 I could afford that I would want to own, that I would want to drive. This one really ticks a lot of boxes for me, JP. I do see you when I see this car, but I would want to own this thing for myself. I really like this thing. So tell us a little bit more about it. You know them really well.
Yeah, polar silver on black really is the perfect color combination on a 993. Now, this car is, you're right. You would think there'd be a ton of these because this is the way that every one of them should have been ordered. You know, C2, silver on black with a limited slip and a 6-speed. You know, anyone that ordered this car with a Tiptronic, you were a complete moron. You know, it's funny you mentioned the stone guards. I'll go right to that. These are the factory stone guards, and I think the factory stone guards look like ish. I think they look terrible on the 993 because there's hardly any gap between the edge of the fender and where they begin. Whereas the stone guards on the older turbo 911s or even the narrow body, Carreras and stuff like that, they had a little bit more of a gap. They had a little bit more of a shape to them. They looked a little bit more like a shark fin. These are just too big. It's just too much black with not enough color relief on the edge where it meets the fender or the tire there. So it looks goofy. Most of these came with a clear stone guard. And did the ad mention that they added this, or are those the factory ones? Because you could order them with the factory ones. Remember. Yeah, so those could be the ones that came with it. You could order them in clear, black, or you could get them color matched back in the day. So even if you had like a rare color, you could get color matched, stone guards. The problem is with them, like most vinyl products, that when you put it on your car, you need to replace them every 5 or 6 years because they get hard and they fuse to the paint, and if you ever need to remove it, then and unfortunately I had that problem with one of my cars. When I removed it, it messed up the clear coat, and it was a big old problem. So be advised. It'd be interesting if I were interested in this car. That's definitely a question I would ask the seller, if those had been, if those are the originals or if they've been replaced, and consequently, if they are replacements, what does it look like underneath? Because if you pulled the originals off and messed up the paint underneath, you could very easily hide that by just plopping a new set over the top of it. So I'd be very curious to see if there are photos of that, if that's the case. In either direction, that's a lot about stone guards.
They look too nice to be original.
They do.
They look like
they do, because they do disintegrate after about 10, 15 years, and this car is much older than that.
25 years old,
Yeah, exactly.
Older.
C2 with the PSS 10s or PSS 9s, the Bilstein coilovers, that's the perfect. I mean, this car has got to handle fantastically. With the strut tower brace, this has got to be there are 2 things I would do to this car, maybe 3. I would replace that steering wheel. If you don't want to go with like a Momo or something like that, if you want to retain the airbag, get yourself a 996 3-spoke steering wheel. You literally unbolt the old one and bolt the 996 on there. That is a very common upgrade on 993s, and it just looks totally in place. It looks totally period correct. The other thing I would do, one of the best mods you can possibly do, and this car does have, I think that's a Tech Equipment shift knob, but it's the same length on the G50 there, 6-speed. I recommend anybody that is lucky enough to get one of these cars to find an RS shift lever. They're a little shorter and they have a great feel to them, and they really do transform the shifting. Even though it's not a short shift, I'm not saying a short shift kit, even though that's a great mod too. That little RS shift lever is just the correct. It's so much better than the big kind of heavy factory one. And then
You
on,
did that.
huh?
You did that on the C4 that you had,
I
right?
did, yeah, and it was. I wish I had done it on my previous C2. I don't know why I never did. It was one of the best, simplest mods you can do to a 993. It's just take the old one off,
Yeah.
put the new one on, and all of a sudden you've got this great shifting thing. Rami's 993 RS has that, and it's fucking freaking awesome.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
Super Cups. The what is it? The exhaust. The Fab Speed Super Cup exhaust. It's basically
Yeah.
a muffler delete on the other side. You just bolt them on, and the car will sound so good. Does this one have stock exhaust?
I think it does. Yeah. I don't think it's been
Yeah,
modded.
yeah. I mean, it saves about 30, 40 pounds off the back and just sounds
Easy.
so good. And you just keep the stock cat, and it's great.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is really kind of the perfect all around air cooled 911. If you want that perfect combination of modern, the air conditionings work, the HVAC works, the window. These are very comfortable cars with the independent suspension, with the coilovers. It's just going to feel great. Oh man, you're right. This is a fantastic car. I know a lot of people
Such a
that
good car.
want this thing. Yeah.
I
But
do.
the question is, can you afford it if you want this car? Because this car is
Yeah.
no longer a $50,000 car, which is what it was for the
Nope.
longest time. So that said, what do we think this car is going to go for?
So JP, sit down because I want you to be sitting when you hear this. Our car doesn't close for another 5 days on Bring a Trailer, and it's already at $74,000. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I think this car is in for a whirlwind. That being said, all the money for one of these cars is $130,000. I don't think this is a $130,000 example. I like the build, but it's got 60,000 miles on it, and it's been slightly changed out. It doesn't have its original wheels, and it's got aftermarket suspension. Now, I love all those things, but I don't think it enhances it from a value standpoint. So I'm curious to see if you don't take the over on this, but I'm going to say $110,000, and it sells at that price. I wouldn't be surprised if this car went for 120. I would be surprised and probably a little dismayed if it only brought 100, because at 100, I would like to own this thing. Um, yeah, it's interesting. Where do you find another one? Again, these are common cars, but they're not common today. So I don't know how to explain what's going on with the marketplace, but the people that own these things aren't selling them right now. And this is the first really nice standard C2 I've seen in a while. I like the way it's built. I like the condition and the mileage that are on it. And this is a car I would want, because right at that six-figure mark would be the top of what I could afford. But I'm just not a player today. So JP, what do you think at $110,000? Am I right, or am I just slightly off?
Did they say whether or not those wheels are real turbo wheels or if they're just turbo twists?
Oh, good question.
Because I mean that does make a
It
bit of a
says
difference.
it says the 18-inch turbo twist wheels are mounted with Conti Extreme contacts in December of 2022.
Okay, so it's
Bring a
not
Trailer
mentioning,
has
yeah.
learned a lot from P-Car Market.
Mm,
They have become really vague and don't take a hard stance on anything. So
mm,
they're just saying they're 18-inch turbo twist wheels, but they're not saying whether or not they're the authentic ones or not.
yeah.
So yeah,
Well,
they're
yeah, and is there any
shifty.
mention of top end being rebuilt or clutch or any of that kind of stuff yet?
No,
Yeah,
nothing.
I mean those are the only two things that, I mean, it's not uncommon for the cam seals on top to leak on these, and then you need an engine out reseal or whatever. Not necessarily a top end rebuild or anything like that, but just reseal, and that's going to cost you 10, 15 grand or something like that. And then the other thing, is there any mention of the SAI, the secondary air intake? That's a big problem on these, and not mentioning that is suspect. Because this car is going to have that problem. The secondary air intake on a 996 of this variant, so that would be, it's not really a .2. It was basically the 95s had the OBD1, the 96s had the OBD2, which had the Vari-RAM, which gave it a little bit more horsepower with this really kind of cool intake thing. But that intake, it's got a emissions deal where it pumps the emissions back through and it reburns it to make it cleaner. But that thing gets gunked up and it'll throw a code. And it's a $10,000 repair. The car will run fine with that code. So if you live somewhere where you don't need to get it smog checked and that isn't a problem, you just leave the light on, frankly, and that's what a lot of people do. But if you live in a place like California and that light comes on, you have to get that repair. And unfortunately, it's not like some other Achilles heels on Porsches where you fix it once and it's done. After a while, it'll gum up again on the SAI. So that is kind of like the one thing that you got to worry about on 993s. Yeah.
The car sat for 5 years, and
Mhm.
then they spent $8,000 to kind of recommission the car and get it, on the road and to
Mhm.
market. And the big thing they did was a 60,000 mile maintenance, and they replaced the entire clutch assembly and the
Okay.
release bearing and all that stuff. So the 8 grand was mostly, tires, brakes, all the fluids and filters and things. And then and then the clutch. So,
Yeah.
but they didn't say anything about the secondary air or the other thing you were talking about.
Not mentioning the secondary air on this car is like not mentioning the IMS on a
Yeah.
996. It's that big a
Yeah.
deal. I mean, an IMS is much worse on a 996, but it's also
Yeah.
the SAI on a 993 is far more common a problem than the IMS is in a 996, if you can believe it.
Right.
If you have one of these cars and you drive it at all, the SAI will fail. It's going to
Yeah.
at some point. And I owned one of these with 30,000 miles on it, and it failed. So,
Oh,
there you go. It is a thing on these, and you just kind of have to live with it. Like I said, it's the kind of thing that you can live with if you don't have to smog it. But if you do have to smog it, that's a problem, right? So,
Yeah.
but all that said, I don't know if any of that's going to matter. Your bid was
I don't think so.
$110,000. This is a low
Yeah.
mileage 993 with all the great things about it that you mentioned. LS.
Yeah.
Or the LSD with the right color combination and low miles.
Motor
I think,
sound, ABD. Yeah.
120 grand. I think
Yeah.
it could go even higher.
I'm not
This
surprised.
checks all the boxes. The suspension upgrade does not hurt the value. Does it help the value? It does to me, but for most people, maybe not. I think it's a neutral. The wheels neutral because they are a wheel that would have
Yep.
come on this car, and they're kind of the right wheel. I think this one needs spacers and get rid of those stupid stone guards. And this car is the bee's knees. So what do you guys think? Would you care about the SAI problem? Would you pay a premium for this car? What do you think it's worth? Are 993s really as good as everyone says they are? I'm going to tell you that they are, but I want to know what your comments are below. Now's the time to play along. Put your bid in right now, and we're going to go jump to the future in just 60 seconds. We're going to be 5 days away. Hey guys, I gotta tell you about our friends Godden Porsche of Las Vegas and Godden Classic. If you're looking for a new Porsche or a classic, you gotta call our friend Steve at Godden, this guy.
1989 linen gray metallic G50 cab.
Is that gonna be for sale?
It is going to be for sale. The car only has 65,000 miles on it.
Save yourself the hassle of screwing around with all the auctions like we always talk about and just talk to Steve. He'll find you the classic Porsche you're looking for. Godden Porsche of Las Vegas. All right, everybody, welcome back to Bid Nerd, your daily nerd out on the most interesting car of the day from all the automotive enthusiast auction sites. And today's car is one of both of our favorites, Michael Deeb and I. How about you guys? What do you guys think of the 993 variant of the 19? What am I saying? Of the 90s, right? I mean, this is probably the one. Most people think that this is the best Porsche ever, a 993, and I'm one of those people. I mean, in two-wheel drive.
Pinnacle.
Woo!
The pinnacle of human achievement, according to the professor.
That would be the wide body version of this car. So
Okay.
this one is up there in the penultimate achievement, but not the pinnacle, not the superlative. This car. Look, let's get right into it. Because everyone's got to be wondering what the results are. I feel like the NFL had something to do with the results on this one. What's up?
Interesting. So, John, our car did sell on Saturday the 21st on Bring a Trailer. And yes, there were NFL football games on at that time. That is an interesting take. Well over $100,000. I came in at 110 grand on the 993 C2 in Polar Silver with really great spec. You took the over at $120,000, saying, where do you find another one? The market, or I should say the cupboard, has been bare for C2s lately. All I seem to find are four-wheel drive variants of the 993 and Targas. Cabs are all put away for the winter. So to find a C2 coupe to come onto the market is kind of a rare thing. Our car sold, JP. Please sit down when you hear this because you're going to be upset. $87,000 took this car home. That is, just to put it in context, that's $23,000 below my bid and $33,000 below your bid. It sold on 32 bids. It got action, and still the action capped and culminated with $87,000. I'm stunned that the seller let it go for so little money. And every once in a while, John, because we play this game all the time, I get all these alerts on my phone about the close of bids and all this sort of thing. When I opened my phone and saw $87,000 for the Polar Silver C2, I cursed out loud. I swore. My wife gets all startled and she looks back at me like, what happened? Who died? And I'm like, which translates to, I should have bought that car.
Yeah,
Anyway,
I mean,
frustrating, super frustrating. We've had a week of disappointments, and this one to me is the one that hurts the most or cuts the deepest because this is honestly a car, legit, John. This is a car I would love to own.
Well, I mean, okay, so look at it this way. I mean, we've seen some pretty big disappointments in air-cooled 911s this week. So is this a missed opportunity on your part, or is this the beginning of a market that is more accessible? If something like this is a car that you want, or are these now more attainable? I mean, I get kind of kicking yourself in the butt that you didn't get it, but at the same time, man, I mean, this is Bring a Trailer. A car like this should have brought all the money. It's the right platform. Yeah. It's the right car. All the boxes are checked. I would have advised anyone looking for one of these, like, hell yeah, under $100,000, jump on that.
For sure.
I'm not ready to say it's done. 911s are over. Air-cooled cars are going to take an ish, but let's face it, the economy is in a weird place. There's a lot of uncertainty out there, and interest rates are way up. So getting a car like this, if you don't already have the cash, is something that you're going to have to pay a lot more for if you're borrowing that money, because there's only a handful of places that will lend on something like this. You got to go to a credit union or one of these classic car, financing places, and their interest rates are already a little higher, generally.
7%, John, 7% for a loan. And they'll happily stretch that 7% out over 10, 12 years, which means you wind up paying, if you take it to term, you pay an exorbitant amount. But I want to go back to the point you made. Is this the sign that the market is softening? The interesting thing about this car is there just isn't another one in the market like this. Like they're still so hard to find. So it will be interesting, and we will endeavor to cover it the next time we see one come to one of the auction sites, so that we can compare it to this result. Because that result really is a head scratcher. That's I'm surprised.
Well, yeah, I mean, the last few C4s in coupes have been brought more than that. I mean, geez, this is just, somebody got a great car. What's that?
Yeah, not even $90,000, John. That's a lot. That's a fun car for the money.
I do think though that weekends are not strong when it comes to something like that. Especially during playoffs. I mean, you sold your car, one of your cars, a year ago, it failed to sell during NFL.
Failed to sell at 12 noon on an NFL Sunday, and I was livid at Bring a Trailer for putting me there because I waited a very long time to come to market, and then they had me close on an NFL Sunday at 12 noon, which is essentially going into the fourth quarter of all the early games, and I just think that's a really bad time slot. But anyways, there's a lot more I regret about selling the car than just where I sold it or didn't sell it.
Another thing that is kind of something to maybe consider on results of cars just this last week. Wasn't last weekend the Barrett Jackson Arizona Phoenix Car Week kind of thing going on? I think there was a lot of auctions there. Do you think that could have affected any of this stuff?
I don't think it was last weekend though.
Was it? Or maybe it was the weekend before. I don't know. All right. Well, what do you guys think out there in the audience? Was this a steal? Is this the true value of a 993? Are they just not worth that much? Or does this represent a softening? What were you going to say?
Barrett Jackson basically starts like it's it's this week, so
It's
it
this
hasn't
week.
happened
Okay.
yet. It's
Hasn't even
happening
happened.
now. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
All
it's
right.
starting right now. So that's a whole big week. But we can't blame last weekend's results on Barrett Jackson because it wasn't time.
Well, I can tell you if you are watching this episode, I'm not sure exactly which day this episode is going to go up, but it is going to be before Carzoon Cafe, which is always the last Sunday of the month
that's
in
fun.
the downtown Las Vegas Arts District. That's our car show that we love to do. It's mostly old Porsches, but come out and say hello if you're in the Las Vegas area at Carzoon Cafe and enjoy kind of like a little micro Luftgekalt. I'll be there. Maybe Michael Deeb will hop in his 914 and drive it out. That would be really cool to see him.
Go.
All right, guys, thanks for hanging out. We'll see you tomorrow with tomorrow's most interesting car of the day on Bid Nerds.